Bonjour, I'm Jennifer, your French teacher in the south of France, and today we're going to talk about the difference between beaucoup de and beaucoup des. So, beaucoup de is an expression of quantity, and we learn very early on in French that expressions of quantity are followed by de. But did you know that there are certain situations which merit beaucoup des? I'm going to tell you all about it in this lesson. French expressions of quantity are followed by de or d apostrophe. Well, let's make this a little more clear. French expressions of quantity are almost always followed by de or d apostrophe. Before we get down to the nitty gritty and talking about when do you use de or when do you use de, let's just talk about French expressions of quantity. It doesn't matter if the noun that follows is plural or singular or masculine or feminine, you're going to follow them almost always with de. Now I'm going to be a little more specific about those expressions of quantity. I'm going to show you some examples in which we use de or d apostrophe with expressions of quantity, and we're using them to replace the partitive articles du, de la, de, l apostrophe, or de. I will repeat, we are replacing partitive articles when we do this. Here's an example, or I just want to say I bought a lot of books. J'ai acheté beaucoup de livres. J'ai acheté beaucoup de livres. It doesn't matter that livre is plural. I'm going to change the partitive article des to de because it's following an expression of quantity. So I'm just saying, let's say I go into a bookshop and I buy a lot of books. I go into a bookshop and I buy a portion of the books that are in there. I go into a bookshop and I buy part of the books that they have. That's the partitive. Here's a different expression of quantity, peu de, peu de. Elle a très peu d'argent. Elle a très peu d'argent. This just means that she has very little money. So why did I not say elle a très peu de l'argent? Because de l'argent, de L apostrophe, that's the partitive. And I changed the partitive to de or d apostrophe after an expression of quantity. I'm going to tell you the difference here in a little while. Just stick with me. So she has very little money. Of all the money that's out there in the world, she has a portion of it. She has a part of it. So we go with the partitive, and this rule applies. Elle a très peu d'argent. And here we have the expression of quantity, assez de. Assez de means enough, enough of. Nous avons assez de provisions. Nous avons assez de provisions. Provision is plural, but we're not going to say assez de provisions because de is a partitive article. We have enough of all the supplies that exist out there in the world. We have our portion of them. We have our part. So we go with the partitive article, and the rule applies. Assez de provisions. Now, here comes the part of the lesson that's going to be interesting. Here's where we move away from a real beginner level French into something that's a little more advanced. And that means that even sometimes, even if you have an expression of quantity, sometimes you do need to go with du, de la, de, L apostrophe, or de. Let me explain when this needs to happen. Here's a question I have for you. In your sentence, is the noun followed by a relative pronoun? And the relative pronouns I'm talking about specifically are more than likely going to be que or qui. And if the concept of relative pronouns is new to you, it's okay because I'm going to show you some examples and I think they're going to make sense to you. But that's the question. Is the noun followed by a relative pronoun? Because this is going to make a difference. Don't you sometimes wish you would learn a rule in French and it would just always be the same? It would just always be constant. Expressions of quantity are always followed by de or d apostrophe. Expressions of quantity are followed by de or d apostrophe. That would be so cool. But listen, it's not always like that. I think it's going to be fun to figure out why, though. Relative pronouns, the ones I just mentioned, qui and que, and there are other relative pronouns, but those are the ones we're talking about in this lesson. they make the distinction between that quantity being a general thing, like I bought a lot of books, or specific to a particular context. Now I'm going to show you some examples, and I'm going to use du, de la, de, and L apostrophe. But in these examples, the du, de la, de, and de, L apostrophe are not partitive articles. They are called contracted articles. Let me show you what I mean. Now, the tricky part is that partitive and contracted articles look exactly the same, but the meaning is slightly different. I think you're going to really understand what I mean when I show you some examples. Here's a partitive article for you. Est-ce que tu veux boire du champagne? Est-ce que tu veux boire du champagne? Do you want to drink some champagne? Some champagne. Champagne is masculine, so it's le champagne. De and le are next to each other. So if they become du, do you want to drink some champagne? Do you not want to drink like all of the champagne, just a portion of it? That's when we use the partitive. Now here's an example of a contracted article. Où est la clé du coffre? Où est la clé du coffre? And what that means is, where is the trunk key? In other words, where is the key of the trunk? That has nothing to do with some of the trunk. That has nothing to do with a part of the trunk. That just has to do with, the key of the trunk. That means this is not a partitive article. Looks like one, doesn't it? But it's not. We're still following the same rules. Du and le become du, but this is a contracted article. So I've decided to put 3 different sentences on here for you to look at. The first one, j'ai mangé une part de gâteau. J'ai mangé une part de gâteau. Une part de is an expression of quantity. It means a piece of or a portion of. And so if I'm eating a portion of a cake, cutting a slice of it and serving it, then that is the partitive. And so du gâteau is going to change to de after that expression of quantity. But look at this one. J'ai mangé une part du gâteau que tu as fait. J'ai mangé une part du gâteau que tu as fait. Now, we still have an expression of quantity, une part, but we're going with du. Look what comes after gâteau. Here you have a relative pronoun que. And in this situation, in English, it translates to the word that. So now what I'm saying is I ate a piece of the cake that you made. So you can see here where I have in English of the, that's a big clue here that we're going to use do, because we're not saying I ate a piece of this big cake and period, that's it. No, I'm being a lot more specific once I throw in that que, that relative pronoun. J'ai mangé une part du gâteau que tu as fait. Elle a acheté quelques bouquets de fleurs. Elle a acheté quelques bouquets de fleurs. She bought a few or some bouquet of flowers. D'accord? Flowers is plural, but we're not going to say bouquet des fleurs because she just bought some bouquet of flowers that were out there. She bought a portion of them, right? So that is changing the partitive des to de because we're following our rule about the expressions of quantity. But the next example is more specific, and that's what we're looking at. And what makes it more specific? The relative pronoun qui that comes after the word fleur. Elle a acheté quelques bouquets des fleurs qui étaient en vente. Elle a acheté quelques bouquets des fleurs qui étaient en vente. And look at it. In English, she bought some bouquet, or do we say bouquets? I don't know. She bought some bouquets of the flowers that were for sale. So you see, of the, that means de les, and de les becomes des. And this is, in this case, a contracted article. Nous avons visité beaucoup de villes. Nous avons visité beaucoup de villes. We visited a lot of cities. Of all the cities that are out there, we visited a lot of them. We visited a portion of them. We visited part of them. That's the partitive. Follow your regular rule. But in the next one, you see there after the word ville, I have a relative pronoun and it is que. Nous avons visité beaucoup des villes que tu nous as suggérées. Nous avons visité beaucoup des villes que tu nous as suggérées. And that means we visited a lot of the, so there's our contracted article again. We visited many or a lot of the cities that, we don't have to say the word that in English, but you need it in French because that's your relative pronoun that hooks everything together. Many of the cities that you suggested to us. That's what the nous is doing there, to us. Let's look at this sentence one more time. Nous avons visité beaucoup des villes. Ville happens to be feminine, right? And plural. Des villes que. Now, when we use the word que, what we're doing is we're actually referring back to the cities, aren't we? And the cities, that's our direct object. Ooh, fun. So what happens when we're in the passé composé and we have a direct object or a direct object pronoun? Here we have the actual direct object and it's coming before a past participle. That means it doesn't matter if avoir is my helping verb. I need to make the direct object ville agree with the past participle suggérer. So that's why I've added an extra E and an S to that. And that's going to happen when que is your relative pronoun. Beaucoup de poissons. Beaucoup de poissons. That just means a lot of fish. Of all the fish out there, it's a part of them. It's a big part of them, but it's still a part. So that's the partitive regular rule. Look at the next one. Beaucoup des poissons que j'ai attrapés se sont échappés. Beaucoup des poissons que j'ai attrapés se sont échappés. So I think maybe you noticed the que, my relative pronoun there, a lot of the, there you have the of the again. So this is my contracted article. A lot of the fish that I caught escaped. They got away. And that's a reflexive verb, which is why I'm using for the first one, que j'ai attrapé. That one uses avoir as a helping verb. Se sont échappés. That one's reflexive. It uses être as a helping verb. But in the first one, see, I underlined the wrong S here. I meant to underline the S on attrapé. So imagine that I did that. Why would I underline the S? Just to remind you. Now, what did I catch? A lot of fish. I caught fish. So if it answers the question what, then that means that the fish are that's my direct object. And I have to make sure that I make the direct object agree with the past participle if the direct object comes before it. So poisson is masculine. However it is plural, I need to add an S to attraper. D'accord? Se sont échappés. Now the fish got away, they escaped. Here, échapper has an S on it simply because être is my helping verb. And in that case, I'm making agreement with the fish still, but in that case, the fish is more like the subject. The important thing here is why is there an S on attraper? Because of the direct object. Do you get that? Why I say beaucoup de poissons? That's very general, but a lot of the fish that. That's my contracted article. So I can go with beaucoup des. Une tranche de gâteau. Une tranche de gâteau just means a slice of cake. You've got the cake sitting there, you take a part of it. That's the partitive. Stick with the rule. Une tranche du gâteau que ta maman a fait. Une tranche du gâteau que ta maman a fait. So what did your mom make? The cake. And what did I do? I took a slice of the, de, le, becomes du. That's a contracted article, a slice of the cake that your mom made. Now, here I don't have to make any agreement on the past participle fait because gâteau is masculine and it's singular. Easy. Peu d'informations. Peu d'informations. Now, you notice here in French, information is plural. That's different because in English it's not. Okay, but information is considered a plural noun. Peu d'informations. So instead of peu des informations, I just, it's just a little of that vast amount of information that's out there. I got a part of it, stick with the rule. But peu des informations que j'ai trouvées étaient utiles. Peu des informations que j'ai trouvées étaient utiles. Here I can go with peu des, even though peu de, peu, it's an expression of quantity, doesn't matter. Because information has that relative pronoun que after it, indicating a direct object, that information is my plural and feminine direct object. How do I know it's a direct object? You answer the question. It says, I found, j'ai trouvé. What did I find? Information. If it answers the question what or who, then it's a direct object, okay? My direct object comes before the past participle trouver, so I have to make agreement. Information, plural and feminine, add an E and an S to trouver. Got it? Peu des informations que j'ai trouvées étaient utiles. Few of the pieces of information that I found were useful. Few of the, de, les becomes des informations que j'ai trouvées étaient utiles. So I hope this lesson has helped clarify this because I know that in my French course for self-learners, I have some cards, practice cards, lots of them for practicing articles and which ones to use and when and where and all of that. And I do have some like this in there. And every time we come across them, I get these questions, wait a minute, why does it say du or de after an expression of quantity? I don't get it. So a big takeaway from this lesson is really understanding that du, de la, de, L apostrophe, those are not always partitive articles. So the concept of a contracted article might be new to you, but I bet it makes sense because in English, fortunately, it really translates well, the keys of the trunk, right? So if you're taking this course, then you need to go and practice all of that stuff I have for you about the articles. And if you're not taking the course and you're interested in it, then I encourage you to check it out. Merci beaucoup et à très bientôt.